a werewolf shifter romance written by Catherine Stewart. Prologue. The air in the heart of the Moonclaw den, it usually hummed, a contented thrum, a symphony of shared breaths, the comforting scent of pine and earth and wolf. Tonight, under the watchful gaze of a full silver moon, Alpha Alaric's laughter rumbled, a sound as deep, as reassuring, as the ancient forest itself. He sat by the central fire, his arm, strong and sure, around Alpha Liana. Her own smile, radiant as she cradled their infant son Alex, the pup, barely a few moons old, just a bundle of soft fur, and that scent, potent, unmistakable, the scent of future Alpha, strength, vitality, a promise of their just rule continued. Young Ilara, then a promising healer, a trusted member of their inner circle, watched them. Her heart swelled with loyalty. Alaric, he was more than an alpha. He was the pack's steady heartbeat. Liana, fierce, yes, but so compassionate. She was its soul. And little Alex, he was their future, a tiny, perfect embodiment of hope. Yet, even in this haven, a discordant note had begun to thrum, softly, in the undercurrents of pack life. Kyle, Alaric's younger, perpetually resentful half-brother, lingered at the edge of the firelight. His own scent was sharp, tinged with ambition, a bitterness that never quite faded. His eyes, when they rested on Alaric or the pup, they held a glint Ilara had learned to distrust, a predatory focus, belying his outward deference. Tonight, he was more restless. Definitely. His gaze flicking towards the den entrance, his posture coiled. Liana, sensing something amiss, met Ilara's eyes. Briefly, a flicker of maternal concern in her own. Then, an unnatural stillness. It fell over the outer den, the usual night sounds of the forest, abruptly cut short. Silence. The attack. A brutal, devastating storm of fur and fang, erupting from the shadows with shocking speed. Wolves Ilara had known, their scents now twisted with Kale's ambition, a terrifying, unfamiliar ferocity. They tore through the den. Alaric roared, a sound of pure alpha fury, meeting the first wave, his strength legendary. Liana, a warrior in her own right, thrust baby Alex into Ilara's arms. "Protect him, Ilara! Run!" Her eyes blazing with desperate love before turning to fight beside her mate. The den became a blur. Blood, snarls, the sickening stench of betrayal. Ilara, clutching the wailing infant, saw Alaric go down, overwhelmed. So many. Kyle himself, delivering a vicious final tear to his throat. Liana screamed, a sound of pure agony. She lunged at Kale, only to be cut down by his loyal brutes. The howl Kale unleashed then, triumphant, chilling, it was not of an alpha protecting his pack. No, it was a tyrant, claiming a blood-soaked throne. Terror. It propelled Ilara. She fled, deep, into the most treacherous part of the forest. Baby Alex hidden beneath her, his cries muffled against her fur. Kyle's wolves. Everywhere. She knew. Knew she couldn't keep him safe within the pack's reach. Kale would hunt down any true heir. He would. Near the roaring rapids of the Silver Stream River, the boundary to the human lands, with pursuit closing in, she made an agonizing choice. Wrapping Alex in her own healer's shawl, imbued with her scent and a desperate prayer to the Moon Mother, she placed him in a sturdy, woven fishing basket, caught in the reeds, with a final tearful nuzzle to his soft fur. She pushed the basket into the current, watching it bob away, towards the distant, unknown human world. "Live," she whispered, her voice raw with grief. "Live, and be strong, little Alpha." She returned to the den days later, a broken wolf among many, feigning ignorance of the pup's fate when Kale's piercing gaze fell upon her. The pack, shrouded in fear. The vibrant heart of Moonclaw, replaced by Kale's cold, iron rule. But within Ilara, beneath the crushing weight of sorrow, the constant vigilance, A tiny, resilient ember of hope remained. She had saved Alaric and Lyanna's son, and one day, she vowed, one day, when the time was right, she would find him. She would tell him the truth. She would help him reclaim what was stolen. The scent of her true alphas. It faded from the den over the long, bleak years that followed, replaced by the acrid tang of Kale's tyranny. But Elara never forgot. She waited, she watched, and she remembered the scent of an alpha pup, full of promise, carried away by the river. The city screamed. Not just the normal scream, you know, not the kind everyone else just seemed to tune out. For Alex, it was a physical thing, a clawing at his ears, a fist in his gut. Today, it was worse. Sirens wailed, a knife-sharp sound that made his teeth ache. And then the smells. Oh God, the smells. Blood, sharp and coppery. That hospital antiseptic stink. And underneath it all, the sour tang of fear, rolling off the guy on the stretcher. Alex, he just wanted to do his job. Be a good EMT. Save a life. But with every heartbeat, the world pressed in. He focused on the patient. A kid. Too young for this. Just breathe, Alex. Just get him to the hospital. Because of that focus, he almost missed the other guy, the one trying to take pictures with his phone. Right. In. Their. Way. And then, something hot and tight exploded in Alex's chest. A snarl. Low. Mean. It wanted to rip out of him. Mine to protect. Some wild part of his brain screamed. He swallowed it down. Hard, his hands clenched. Not normal, Alex. Not normal. Sir, please step back, he barked, his voice way too harsh. The guy jumped. Alex's partner, Sarah. She gave him a look, one he knew too well. There goes Alex again. Later, after they'd handed the kid off, Sarah tried. You okay, man? You seemed extra tense. Alex just shrugged, that old familiar shame coiling in his stomach. Fine. Just a headache. A lie. It was always more than a headache. It was like his whole body was tuned to a station no one else could hear. A station that played static and screams and whispers of something else. Something wild. He didn't know what scared him more, the idea that he was crazy, or the deep down feeling that maybe, just maybe, this was him. More importantly, he needed quiet. He needed green. He found himself staring at a faded poster on the ambulance bay wall, a forest, all misty and deep. And just like that, a feeling washed over him. A pull so strong it ached. A dream, almost a memory, flickered behind his eyes. Running. Fast. Under a canopy of leaves. The scent of pine. And something else. Someone else. A comforting presence just out of sight. What was that? It was gone. Before he could grab it. Still, the ache lingered. This city. It was a cage, made of noise and bad smells, and he just wanted out. He had to get out. This longing. It set the stage for the unease that would soon unravel his entire world. So Alex tried, he really did, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Try to be normal, try to connect. He'd met Lisa at a coffee shop. She seemed nice, pretty smile, didn't talk too loud. He'd thought, maybe this time. Truth be told, a part of him always hoped. They went to a quiet little Italian place. Candles, soft music, all the things that were supposed to be romantic. But then, Lisa's perfume hit him. Not bad, not really, just a lot. Like a whole field of flowers crammed up his nose. And then, it wasn't just the perfume. It was her. He could smell her nervousness, a faint, tinny edge to her scent. He heard the way her heartbeat quickened when the waiter got too close. He saw the tiny muscle twitching by her eye when she talked about her boss. It was too much. All of it. She was saying something about a movie, her eyes bright. He tried to focus, to listen to her words, But all he could hear was the thump, thump, thump of her pulse. All he could smell was that cloud of flowers. And fear. He found himself answering her questions with grunts, his own body, tight as a drum. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be here, with her? Maybe it was fate, that he was like this, destined to be on the outside, looking in. You seem distant, Lisa said, her smile faltering. Her voice, it sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. Sorry, Alex mumbled. Long day. Another lie. It was always a long day. The rest of the dinner. A slow, painful crawl. He felt like a fraud, a broken machine, pretending to be human. By the time he walked her to her door, the silence between them was a heavy blanket. No goodnight kiss, just an awkward wave. As a result, he went home feeling emptier than before. His small apartment, usually a refuge, it felt like a cell. The silence roared. He slumped onto his couch, the city's distant hum a mocking lullaby. Why was it so hard? Why did every attempt to connect leave him feeling more alone? More wrong? He didn't know what scared him more, the thought of being alone forever, or the terrifying possibility that he was the one pushing everyone away because of this thing inside him. The weight of this unanswered question, it pressed down on him, a prelude to an even greater upheaval. It was raining, not a gentle rain. No, a hard, angry downpour that turned the city streets into slick, dark mirrors. Alex was just getting home, soaked and miserable, when he saw her, standing by his apartment steps, like a shadow peeled from the stormy night. An old woman, her face, all sharp angles and deep-set eyes that seemed to see right through him. Her clothes were strange, homespun, and she smelled of damp earth, pine needles, and something wilder, something that tugged at that weird, familiar ache deep inside him. Before he could move, she spoke. Her voice was low, rough, like stones grinding together. Alexander. Not Alex. Alexander. No one called him that. His heart skipped. Do I know you? He managed, his own voice sounding shaky. You know of my people, she said, her gaze never leaving his. The Moonclaw. Your people. Moonclaw? What was she talking about? Maybe it was fate. This strange encounter on a stormy night. I think you have the wrong person, Alex said, trying to edge past her. But then, she held out her hand. In her palm lay a small wooden carving. A wolf. Its head thrown back in a silent howl. His breath caught. It was the wolf from his dreams. The one he'd tried to sketch 100 times. Your father, Alaric, carved this for you, the woman said. Her voice softer now, but still with that unsettling edge. Your mother, Leanna, they wait for you. Wait for me? My parents are dead. Look, lady, I don't know what game you're playing. This is no game, son of alphas. She interrupted. And there was a power in her voice now, a resonance that shivered down his spine. Kyle sits on a stolen throne. The pack suffers. Your blood calls you home. Kyle. The name meant nothing to him. Yet, deep down he knew the truth, or at least, a sliver of it. This wasn't normal. None of this. But her words, the wolf carving, the way she looked at him, it was too much, too strange, too real, in a way that made his carefully built, normal life feel like a paper house in a hurricane. Stay away from me, he snarled, the words out before he could stop them. He fumbled for his keys, unlocked his door, and practically fell inside, slamming it shut behind him. He leaned against it, chest heaving. The image of the wolf carving burned into his mind. The full moon. Just 2 nights away. And just like that, everything changed, even though he was desperately trying to pretend it hadn't. He didn't know it yet. But this rejection was just the first tremor, before the earthquake that would shatter his world. The 2 nights after the old woman vanished, they were a blur. A bad, itchy, teeth-grinding kind of blur. Alex felt like his skin was too tight, like his bones were trying to rearrange themselves. Sleep? Forget it. Every shadow in his tiny apartment seemed to twist, to watch him. And the moon, that full, fat moon, it called to something deep inside him, something he'd spent his whole life trying to ignore. He didn't know what scared him more, the feeling, or the fact he couldn't stop it. That night, the third night, it happened. A pain ripped through him, so sharp, so blinding, it stole his breath. He doubled over, crashing into his cheap coffee table, wood splintered, his back arched, an impossible angle. Bones snapped, not breaking, no, changing, reshaping. Oh God, what's happening to me? His fingers curled, nails thickening, turning black. Fur, coarse and dark, sprouted along his arms, his chest, the room, his familiar little room. It swam in a red haze. His senses, already too sharp, exploded. He could smell the fear coiling off his own skin, the stale pizza in the trash, the dust motes dancing in the moonlight from the window. Each scent, a hammer blow. Then, the sounds. The city's roar became a symphony of individual tortures. A cat, yowling 3 blocks away, a couple arguing in the apartment below, his own heart, pounding like a war drum. Make it stop, please, make it stop. But then, his own throat tore open, a sound he'd never made before, not a scream, not a cry, a howl, raw, primal, full of an agony, and a power that wasn't human. He thrashed, a beast in a cage of plaster and wood, his mind lost in a storm of instinct and terror. What followed was a chaotic dance of destruction and pain, until darkness, blessed darkness, finally closed in. When he woke, it was to a world remade in agony, and the chilling realization that nothing would ever be the same. He was so cold and aching. God, the aching. Like every bone in his body had been broken, and then roughly shoved back into place. Alex blinked. Grit scraped against his eyelids. He was somewhere else. An alley? Yes. Filthy, reeking of garbage and something else. Something coppery and rank that made his stomach turn. Blood. His blood? He was naked, shivering. And then, memories. Fragmented. Horrific. They clawed their way back. The pain, the sounds, the fur. Alexander. That voice. The old woman. Ilara. She knelt beside him, her face etched with a sorrow that mirrored the desolation in his soul. Gently, she draped a thick woven blanket over his trembling shoulders. "It is as I told you," she said, her voice surprisingly soft. "You are Wolf, son of Alaric." Alex tried to speak, to deny it, but only a choked sob escaped, because deep down, he knew the truth now. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't madness. This was him. The broken parts, the wrong feelings, the sensory hell. It all clicked into place, with horrifying clarity. "This is why," his mind whispered. "This is what I am." Ilara began to speak. Her words, painting a picture of a life he'd never known. Of noble alpha parents, Alaric and Lyanna, beloved by their Moonclaw pack. Of a younger brother, Kale, twisted by jealousy and ambition. A brother who had stolen the alpha throne through betrayal and bloodshed. A brother who now ruled, with a cruel, iron fist. "Your pack, they suffer, Alexander," Ilara murmured, her eyes filled with an ancient pain. "Your bloodline calls to you. The true alpha is needed." Alex just stared at his hands. They looked human again, but he could still feel the phantom sensation of claws, of fur, a monster. That's what he was, a monster who was also an alpha, a son. It was too much, which meant he was truly lost. The woman's story, as unbelievable as it sounded, It resonated with a truth far deeper than anything he had ever known or feared. He couldn't go back. That was the first stark thought. It cut through Alex's fog of pain and confusion. Back to what? His tiny apartment, now probably half destroyed? His EMT job, where he'd surely be seen as a danger, a freak, if anyone ever knew. His old life. It felt like a dream he was waking up from, a poorly fitting suit he'd finally ripped to shreds. As a result, a hollow ache settled in his chest, a grief for a life that was never truly his, yet was all he'd ever known. Ilara watched him, her silence, more potent than any words. She didn't push. She didn't need to. Because what choice did he have? Live as a hunted anomaly in the human world, terrified of the next full moon, of the beast clawing inside him? Or step into this other world she spoke of, a world of wolves, of packs, of alphas, and brothers who murdered for power. Neither option sounded like a picnic. Still, one path offered answers, a chance to understand the why of his tormented existence. The other, only more fear, more isolation. This Kale, Alex finally managed, his voice raspy. My brother, he knows about me. Ilara shook her head. He believes the true heir died with your parents or was lost to the wilds. A fate perhaps worse than death for one so young. He does not know you live as a human. A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face, which for now is a small mercy. A small mercy. Right. Alex let out a harsh laugh that turned into a cough, his whole body. It felt like one giant bruise. My brother, the tyrant. It sounded like something out of a bad fantasy novel. Yet her words, the way she said them, they rang with a terrible, undeniable truth. More importantly, what if this was his only chance to not feel so broken? So, he made his choice. Not with courage, not with conviction, but with the weary resignation of a man who had run out of other options. Okay, he whispered, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. Okay, Ilara, take me to them. Take me to my pack. He couldn't bring himself to say home. Not yet, maybe, never. Without another word, they left the city behind. The rising sun cast long, mournful shadows as Alex stepped into a future he couldn't imagine, and a past he was only beginning to comprehend. The city stink. It faded after days of walking, replaced by something else, something clean, earthy. Pine needles crunched under Alex's worn sneakers, a soft sound after the city's constant roar. Ilara moved like a shadow beside him, her silence, as deep as the woods they now walked through. And then she stopped. We are here, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Alex looked, and his breath just left him. It wasn't a town, not really. More like a hidden valley. Rough-hewn cabins nestled among giant trees, smoke curling from stone chimneys. But it was the smells that hit him first. 100 different scents, all layered together: wood smoke, cooking meat, damp fur, and something else, something powerful and wild that made the hairs on his arms stand up. Wolves. Lots of them. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was real. Too real. Maybe it was fate that led him here, to this impossible place. Before he could move, before he could even think, a figure stepped out from the trees. A woman, tall, lean, with a wildness in her eyes that matched the forest around them. Her hair, the color of a raven's wing. And she moved with a hunter's grace. Her scent, it hit Alex like a physical blow. Pine, yes, like his dreams, but also like summer lightning, and clean, rushing water, and something fiercely, wonderfully female wolf. It was the scent he'd yearned for, the one that had haunted his sleep. His world tilted. She didn't know what scared her more, the stranger, or the sudden, intense pull she felt towards him. Her gaze, the color of amber and firelight, locked onto his. Sharp, assessing, suspicious. "Alara," the woman said, her voice low and a little rough, like autumn leaves skittering over stone. "You bring an outsider?" Her eyes flicked to Alex, and he felt it, clear as day, a jolt, like touching a live wire. Something inside him shifted. Alara stepped forward. "Lyra, this is Alexander, son of Alaric and Lyanna." Lyra's eyes widened, just a fraction, before her suspicious mask slammed back down. But Alex saw it, that flicker, and he felt it too, a crazy, impossible string pulling him towards this dangerous, beautiful woman. What is this? He'd never felt anything like it. Not only that, but a tiny, insane part of him, the part that was more wolf than man, wanted to purr, as if fate demanded it. Their first meeting set in motion a chain of events that neither could have predicted, changing everything. The next few days, a confusing blur. Alara, bless her patient heart, tried to teach him. "This is the Moonclaw way, Alexander," she'd say, her voice gentle but firm. She talked about pack law, about alpha blood, about the great Moon Mother who watched over them. She explained that his sensory overload was just his wolf senses, stronger than most because of his lineage, but untrained. He learned about the sacred bonds of the pack. Bonds Kale, his brother, spat on. Truth be told, it was like learning a whole new language, a whole new way to be. Because of that, he stumbled, a lot. He'd try to focus his hearing, like Alara showed him, and end up with a splitting headache from the overload of forest sounds. He'd try to scent the trail of a rabbit, and instead get a noseful of Lyra's distracting, intoxicating aroma from half a clearing away. Which meant he wasn't making a great impression. Lyra, she was always there watching him. Her amber eyes missed nothing. Sometimes he'd catch her looking at him with a strange mix of distrust and something else. Something that made his skin tingle. She didn't talk much. Not to him anyway. But when Alara was explaining a particularly harsh pack law Kale had twisted for his own gain, like the one that said alphas ate first, even if pups went hungry, Alex saw Lyra's jaw tighten. Her hand clench into a fist. She hates him too, he realized. She hates what he's doing to this pack. One afternoon, Alara was trying to teach him about the different herbs used for healing. "This one," she said, holding up a feathery green plant, "is wolfsbane. Deadly to us in large amounts, but Kale, he has his enforcers cultivate it near the borders. A warning, he calls it." Alex frowned. A warning. To who? To any who displease him, Alara said, her voice grim. Or any who might challenge him. Her eyes met his, and he knew. She wasn't just talking about any challenger. She was talking about him. He felt a cold knot in his stomach. What was he getting into? Could he ever really belong in a place with rules this savage, with a leader this cruel? Maybe it was his human side, but the thought of it made him sick. Yet, when he glanced up and saw Lyra watching him, a fierce, almost protective gleam in her eyes before she quickly looked away, a different kind of feeling stirred. A feeling that was a lot like hope. The air thickened with unspoken questions, pulling him deeper into this wild, dangerous world. It was bound to happen. Sooner or later. Alex knew it. Still, when Kyle, his brother, the Alpha, finally decided to acknowledge his presence, it was like a cold wind sweeping through the den. Kyle was big, bigger than Alex, with their father's dark hair, but none of his warmth. His eyes were chips of ice, and his scent, it was alpha, yes, but sharp, acrid, like burnt power. He moved with an arrogant swagger, his enforcers, all muscle and menace, flanking him. He stopped in front of Alex, who was trying to help Alara sort herbs. Kale looked him up and down. A sneer played on his lips. "So," Kale drawled, his voice dripping with contempt, "this is the Stray Alara dragged in? Smells more like city filth than wolf. Alex felt his blood heat, his hands clenched. He wanted to snarl, to lash out, but Alara put a warning hand on his arm. Not yet. He is of our blood, Kyle, Alara said, her voice steady, even though Alex could feel the slight tremor in her arm. Kale laughed, a short, ugly sound. Blood thins when it's been watered down by humans. He looks weak, soft. He took a step closer, invading Alex's space. What use are you to this pack, Stray? Can you hunt? Can you fight? Or can you only cower behind old women? Alex's jaw tightened. He met Kale's icy gaze. I can learn. Learn? Kale chuckled again. There's nothing for you to learn here but obedience. And pain. Then, his eyes slid past Alex, landing on Lyra, who had just entered the den, her expression unreadable. Kyle's sneer softened into something possessive, slimy. Lyra, my beauty, come, leave the healer to her charity case. Alex saw the flash of distaste in Lyra's eyes before she schooled her features. She gave a curt nod, but didn't move towards Kale. Instead, her gaze flickered to Alex, just for a second. In that moment, he saw it again, that fierce protective spark. And something else, a shared understanding. Kyle, missing the silent exchange or choosing to ignore it, turned back to Alex. Stay out of my way, human. This is my pack, my territory. Remember that. With a final dismissive glare, he swept out, his enforcers following like shadows. The tension broke, leaving Alex trembling with a mixture of rage and humiliation. Deep down, he knew the truth. Kale wasn't just a threat to the pack. He was a threat to whatever fragile hope Alex had of finding a place here, a threat to whatever was sparking between him and Lyra, and that he couldn't ignore. This confrontation, it was just the beginning, a taste of the bitter war to come. After that run-in with Kale, something shifted. Lyra, she didn't just watch him anymore. No, now she trained him, and Alara, bless her, stepped back, letting Lyra take the lead because, truth be told, Alara was a healer, not a fighter. Lyra? Oh, she was a fighter, all right. Every day, from sunup till the moon climbed high. She pushed him, hard. Again, Alexander, she'd snap, her voice sharp as a honed blade after he'd fumbled a block or missed a scent trail. Your senses are a gift, not a curse, use them. It was brutal. His muscles screamed, his human mind. It struggled to keep up with the lightning-fast instincts she demanded. More than once he wanted to quit, to tell her he wasn't cut out for this, that he was just a broken human in a wolf's world. But then, he'd see the fierce belief in her amber eyes, or catch her scent, pine and lightning, and that wild female wolf, and something inside him would roar back to life. For her. I can do this. For her. And then, moments later, during a sparring session, their bodies would collide, a brush of fur against fur if they were shifted, skin against skin if they were in human form, and the air would just crackle. Once, after he'd finally managed to pin her, a small victory that felt huge, they'd been panting. Close. Her scent, overwhelming him. He'd leaned in, without thinking, and nuzzled her neck, a soft, possessive sound rumbling in his chest. A purr. Her eyes had widened, her breath hitched, and for a heartbeat, just one, she'd leaned into him. Her scent, his scent. They mingled, a heady, intoxicating perfume that felt like home, like destiny. As if pulled by a string, his own alpha nature started to wake up, to answer the call in her. What followed was a subtle shift in their training. It became less about just fighting, and more about connection. They learned to anticipate each other's moves, to communicate with just a look, a shared breath. He was getting stronger, faster, more wolf, more alpha. But then, Kale noticed. Of course he noticed. He saw Lyra, his beauty, spending all her time with the stray. One evening, as Alex and Lyra returned from the training grounds, Cale was there. His eyes, like chips of ice, his scent, acrid with displeasure. "Enjoying your pupil, Lyra?" he'd sneered, his gaze lingering on her in a way that made Alex's blood boil. "Don't get too attached. Some strays don't last long." The threat hung in the air, cold and sharp, a promise of the storm to come. Cale's threat? It wasn't an empty one. Soon after, he set his trap. He'd sent word that some of the pack's young hunters were cornered by a rival band of feral wolves. A lie, of course. But one Alex, with his growing protectiveness, couldn't ignore. Lyra had argued against it. "It's too easy, Alex, it smells wrong." But he, still a little too human, a little too eager to prove himself, went anyway. And Lyra, because she wouldn't let him go alone, went with him. Her body moved on instinct, always near him. It was an ambush, just as she'd feared, not ferals. No, Cale's chosen enforcers, bigger, meaner, their eyes gleaming with malice. They were surrounded, outnumbered. Alex fought, using everything Lyra had taught him, but it wasn't enough. One of the brutes lunged for Lyra, claws extended, and then something inside Alex snapped. A roar, not of a man, not even of a normal wolf, but of an alpha, ripped from his throat. Power, raw and immense, it surged through him. His shift was instantaneous. Not the agonizing pain of before, but a seamless, controlled explosion of fur and fang and righteous fury. He was bigger, stronger. His senses blazed, every enemy movement clear, every scent a road map. He tore into Cale's wolves, a whirlwind of protective rage, Lyra fighting fiercely at his side. Their movements, a deadly, fated dance. They drove them back, wounded, howling, in the aftermath, panting, bloodied. Alex shifted back. His human form trembled with adrenaline. Lyra rushed to him, her eyes wide with awe, and something else, something that made his heart thunder. "Alex," she breathed, her hand reaching for his face. You were magnificent." But then, Ilara arrived, her face a mask of horror, not from their battle, but from news she carried. "Kyle," she choked out, "I found proof. He didn't just usurp the throne, Alexander. He murdered your parents. He orchestrated it all. And he ensured you were lost, meant to die in the human world." The world, which had just expanded with his newfound power, suddenly narrowed to a single point of burning, unbearable pain. His parents, murdered. By him, his brother. As if the world narrowed, Alex looked at Lyra, her face pale, her eyes reflecting his own agony. In that moment, under the weight of his stare, she didn't hesitate. She stepped into his embrace, holding him tight. "We face him together," she whispered, her voice a fierce promise. Always. Her words, her touch, they were an anchor in the storm of his grief and rage, solidifying a bond that now felt as essential as breathing. What followed was chaos. Cale, furious at the public display of Alex's alpha power and the defeat of his enforcers, declared Alex and Lyra outlaws, traitors, to be hunted down. They were fugitives in their own packlands, the forest that had started to feel like a sanctuary, now a web of danger. Ilara, her earlier news about Cale's ultimate betrayal still raw in Alex's mind, guided them through secret paths. Her knowledge of the terrain, their only shield. Even so, the first few days were a desperate blur, near misses, whispered conversations in hidden hollows. One night, huddled in a cold, damp cave, the tension between Alex and Lyra, it finally cracked. "This is my fault," Alex said, his voice hoarse with grief and self-blame. "If I hadn't come here, if I wasn't who I am, you wouldn't be in this danger." He couldn't meet her eyes. The thought of her getting hurt because of him, because of his bloodline, It was a fresh kind of agony. Lyra's hand covered his. Warm. Strong. "Don't you dare, Alexander," she said, her voice low but fierce, her amber eyes blazing in the dim light. "This isn't your fault. It's Cale's, his darkness, not yours." She paused, her gaze softening. "And where you go, I go. That's how this works. For us." Between one breath and the next, she leaned in and kissed him, a desperate, possessive claiming that tasted of fear and fight, and a love so profound it stole the air from his lungs. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, he kissed her back, pouring all his rage, his grief, his burgeoning hope into that one, shattering connection. Us. The word echoed in his soul. In that moment, her world tilted, and his too. Ilara, it turned out, wasn't just leading them to safety. She was leading them to others. A small, secret enclave of wolves, still loyal to the memory of Alaric and Lyanna. Wolves who had suffered silently under Cale's tyranny. They were few and wary. But they saw the truth in Alex's eyes, the alpha power in his stance, and the undeniable bond he shared with Lyra. A true mate bond, Ilara explained. A sign from the Moon Mother herself. Hope, fragile but real, began to flicker among them. But then, Ilara shared more grim news. Cale, he plans a ritual, under the blood moon, now just weeks away. A ritual to bind the pack's spirit to him, to solidify his power through dark, ancient magic. Once it's done, she trailed off, her meaning clear. Once it was done, Kyle would be unstoppable, and the pack's soul would be lost, forever. The stakes, already impossibly high, had just been raised to a terrifying new level. The air in the hidden rebel camp, it was thick with fear, but also a desperate, hungry kind of hope. Ilara had finished speaking of Cale's blood moon ritual, her words, painting a grim picture of a pack enslaved, its spirit, broken. All eyes turned to Alex. He felt Lyra's hand find his, her fingers lacing through his, strong and steady. That small touch. It was like a spark in the darkness. So, he stood, and he spoke. He didn't have their father's booming alpha voice. Not yet. Instead, his words were quiet, edged with the pain of his stolen life, but burning with a new, fierce resolve. Cale took my parents, he began, his voice raw. He tried to take my life, and now, he wants to take the soul of this pack. He looked at each wolf, their faces, etched with hardship. I was raised human. I didn't know your ways. Maybe I still don't, not all of them. But I know what's right. I know what a pack should be. A family, not a prison. Because of that simple truth, a murmur went through the small crowd. Lyra squeezed his hand. Kyle is strong, Alex continued, but he rules by fear. We will fight with courage. We will fight for our families, for our future, for the memory of Alaric and Lyanna. As if pulled by a string, his own alpha presence began to surface. A subtle pressure in the air, a scent of command that was both his father's legacy and uniquely his own. I don't ask for your loyalty because of my blood, he declared. I ask you to stand with me because you believe in a better way. I will challenge him. I will reclaim what was stolen, for all of us. In that moment, a young wolf, then another, and another, let out a low howl of assent. It wasn't a full-throated challenge, not yet, but it was a promise, a beginning. Deep down, he knew the truth. There was no turning back now. This was his path, his fight, and with Lyra beside him, her scent a heady mix of pine and lightning and fierce love, he felt for the first time, not like a lost boy, but like an alpha, ready to claim his own. Their unified purpose, however fragile, was the first true challenge to Cale's dark reign. Their first move, it had to be bold. Ilara had learned that Cale was holding several pack elders hostage. those who had subtly resisted his darkest decrees, those who remembered the old ways. He planned to use their life force in his blood moon ritual. "We free them," Alex had said, his voice tight with determination, "and we show the pack Kale is not untouchable." Lyra had planned the raid, her tactical mind, sharp as her claws. It was risky, insanely so, but they had to try. And then, against all odds, it worked. Under the cover of a moonless night, their small band of rebels, moving like shadows with Lyra and Alex at the fore, infiltrated Kale's heavily guarded holding pens. There were fights, quick, brutal. Alex's newfound alpha strength and Lyra's warrior prowess, a terrifying combination. He felt it, clear as day, their movements sinking, a silent, deadly dance. They freed the elders, a huge blow to Kale's ritual plans, a massive boost to the rebels' morale. For a fleeting moment, as they slipped back into the forest with the grateful, weakened elders, Alex felt a surge of triumph. "We did it!" But then, Kale struck back, fast, and with a cruelty that stole Alex's breath. What followed was a wave of retribution. Instead of a direct assault on their known hiding spots, Kale, with his enforcers, swept through the main pack encampment. He didn't hunt the rebels, no. He made an example. He dragged out families, mates and pups of wolves merely suspected of sympathizing with Alex. And then, the worst news reached them. Carried by a terrified scout, Kyle had taken Alara. Publicly, viciously. He'd declared she would be the first sacrifice for his blood moon ritual. Her betrayal, fueling its dark power. A direct, agonizing message to Alex. The air thickened with Alex's choked growl. Alara, his guide, his connection to his past. Now a pawn in Kale's twisted game. The small victory. It tasted like ash. "It's a trap, Alex." Lyra's voice was a low warning, her hand tight on his arm. Her scent, usually so calming, was sharp with fear and fury. "He wants you to come for her. He'll be waiting." "I know," Alex growled, the sound more wolf than man. Ilara, kind, wise Ilara, who had risked everything to find him. He couldn't leave her to Kale's barbarity. He just couldn't. "But we're not leaving her. We go, tonight." The decision was made. Their small rebel force, now burning with a righteous fury that overshadowed their fear, prepared for what felt like a suicide mission. Lyra, despite her initial caution, was a whirlwind of deadly grace, assigning positions, her amber eyes blazing with a protective light that was all for him, for Ilara, for their cause. Her body moved on instinct, always positioning herself to guard his flank. What's worse, Kyle had chosen the old ritual grounds for Ilara's sacrifice, a place of sacred power he was now defiling. As they approached, the air grew heavy, cold. The scent of Kale's dark magic and his enforcers was thick. The fight, when it came, was desperate. Alex and Lyra fought back to back, a seamless unit of claw and fang, their true-mate bond, a silent language between them. He saw Ilara, bound to a dark stone altar, Kyle standing over her, a ritual knife gleaming. "Come for her, little brother," Kyle taunted, his voice amplified by the strange acoustics of the clearing. "Come and watch your last link to our noble past. Bleed out." As if pulled by a string, Alex lunged, but Kale was ready. Enforcers swarmed them. Alex saw one break through, heading for Lyra as she covered their retreat with Ilara. Without thinking, he threw himself in the brute's path. Claws raked his side, pain exploding through him. But then, Lyra was there, a golden-eyed fury, tearing the attacker away. She got Ilara clear, but not before another of Kale's guards landed a sickening blow, a silver-edged blade slicing deep into Lyra's shoulder as she shielded Ilara. A pained yelp. Her scent, spiking with agony, and Alex lost it. A tidal wave of alpha rage, black and absolute, consumed him. He didn't remember the next few moments, only the scent of blood, his own snarls, and Lyra's name, a desperate prayer on his lips. When the red haze cleared, Kyle was gone, vanished into the shadows. But Lyra was down, bleeding, her breath shallow. The blood moon was beginning its ascent. Her life. It was now the most critical open loop. A question, hanging heavy in the blood-tinged air. The cave was cold, damp. Not like the warm den Lyra deserved. Not like the home he'd stupidly dreamed they might one day share. Instead, she lay on a bed of hastily gathered moss and ferns, her breathing shallow, her beautiful amber eyes clouded with pain. The silver-edged blade Kale's guard had used. Alara said silver was like poison to their kind, slow-acting, but vicious, especially for a wound so deep. Alex knelt beside her. His hands hovered over her, useless. He felt it clear as day, her life force, that vibrant fire he loved, dimming. With every ragged breath she took. My fault. This is all my fault. Alara worked tirelessly, her old hands applying poultices, murmuring ancient healing chants. But the blood, dark and sluggish, kept seeping through the bandages around Lyra's shoulder. The silver, it fights the healing, Alara whispered, her face grim in the flickering torchlight. Her wolf tries, but the poison, it is strong. Because of that, a cold dread seeped into Alex's bones, far colder than the cave air. He'd felt so powerful just moments ago. That alpha rage, a cleansing fire. But now he was just Alex again. Scared, helpless, useless. What good was alpha strength if he couldn't save her? The ritual you mentioned, he choked out. The mating bite, the blood moon. Can it work? Can it save her? Alara's gaze, filled with a deep sorrow. It is a ritual of profound connection, of shared life force, Alexander. It requires the alpha to be whole, in spirit, in power. And the blood moon. Kale uses its peak for his own dark designs. To challenge him then, to perform our sacred rite amidst his sacrilege. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. It sounded impossible. And then, as if summoned by their despair, a howl echoed from the distance. Kale's howl, triumphant, mocking. A sound that promised more pain, more loss. He was probably celebrating, knowing Alex was trapped. His mate, dying. The weight of it all impressed down on Alex, threatening to crush the very breath from his lungs. Hope, Alex learned, was a fragile thing, like a candle flame in a storm, and his was flickering badly. What followed Lyra's wounding was a slow, agonizing descent. Some of the few rebels they had gathered, their faces grim, had slipped away into the night. After seeing Lyra so grievously injured, and Kale's apparent invincibility, he couldn't blame them. Who would follow a leader who couldn't even protect his own mate? Each silent departure, it felt like another stone on Alex's already heavy heart. They see it too, he thought. They see I'm not enough. He tried. Gods, how he tried. Alara spoke of rare herbs, deep in Kale's territory. That might slow the silver's poison. That might give Lyra a fighting chance until the blood moon's peak. So, he went. Alone, sneaking through familiar paths that now felt alien and hostile. Every shadow a threat, every rustle of leaves, Kale's enforcers. But Kyle, he was always a step ahead. The herb patch, destroyed, trampled and burned. A trap, baited with false hope. He barely escaped with his life, a fresh set of claw marks burning on his ribs. His spirit, even more battered than his body. As a result, he returned to the cave empty-handed, the scent of his failure, clinging to him like Kale's acrid magic. He sat beside Lyra, her skin so pale, her breathing so faint. He took her hand, It was cold. That beautiful fire in her eyes. It was almost gone. Just dull embers now. His fault. His weakness. His stupidity. That old, familiar voice whispered in his mind. The one that had haunted his human life. See? You are broken. You bring pain. You ruin everything you touch. He remembered all those years, feeling like an outsider, like something was fundamentally wrong with him. And now? Now he knew it was true. He was a curse, a blight, not an alpha, not a hero, just a failure. He didn't know what scared him more, losing Lyra, or the crushing certainty that he was the reason she was lost. Deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't the alpha they needed. He was just a pretender, bringing ruin. The moment he dreaded, it arrived, with the chilling stillness that often precedes the deepest despair. Lyra's breath hitched. Once, twice. Her fingers, so cold in his, twitched. Her eyes fluttered open. Just a slit, the amber, dull, unfocused. Alex. Her voice was a thread, a whisper of dry leaves. Sorry. No, Lyra, don't you dare say sorry, he choked out, his heart shattering into a million pieces. Stay with me, please. Stay. But then, a tiny, almost imperceptible sigh escaped her lips. And she was still. Too still. Her scent, it faded, that vibrant lightning and pine, dimming into almost nothing. No, no, no. The silence in the cave roared, deafening him. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He just broke. A raw, animalistic sound of pure agony tore from his throat, echoing the howl of the beast he truly was. Ilara tried to touch his shoulder, but he flinched away. What was the point? Lyra was gone. His fault. He'd failed her, failed his parents, failed the pack, failed himself. That night, the blood moon rose, huge, malevolent, staining the forest in its unholy light. From the distant ritual grounds, Kale's triumphant howls echoed. Louder now, filled with dark power. His ritual was succeeding. He was winning. And Alex? Alex was nothing. Just a broken man, a failed wolf, kneeling in a cold cave, beside the body of his mate. His soul, the old woman's words, Ilara's faith, his own brief, foolish hopes. They were all lies. Dust. Ash. He was exactly what he'd always feared he was. Fundamentally, irreparably broken. An outsider who only brought pain and destruction. There was nothing left to fight for. No reason to go on. Maybe it was fate. Maybe this was always how his story was meant to end. In the quiet that followed, as the echo of his own despair faded, he simply sat in the darkness, a hollow shell, while his brother claimed the world. Darkness. It was a cold, heavy blanket Alex had wrapped around himself. Lyra, gone. Kyle, winning. What was the point? He was just a broken thing, a failure. The hollow ache in his chest, a gaping wound, but then, a sound, so faint, a whisper. Lex? His head snapped up. Lyra. Her eyes were still closed, her skin like ice. But her lips, they'd moved, and her fingers, tangled with his, twitched. Just a little. But it was something. Not an illusion, not a dream. She was still fighting, her wolf, her fierce, beautiful spirit. It was still tethered to him, to life, by the thinnest, most fragile thread. And just like that, something inside him cracked, not breaking further, no, breaking open. Because if she could fight, after everything, after him nearly giving up on her, then who was he to surrender? Ilara, who had been watching him with an expression of profound sorrow, now had a flicker of something else in her ancient eyes. Hope. She holds on for you, Alexander, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Her wolf calls to yours, the true mate bond. It is stronger than even Kale's darkness, stronger than Silver's poison, if the alpha who claims it is truly whole. Whole. The word echoed. He'd spent his life feeling fractured, human, wolf, Never quite either. Always. Broken. But Lyra, she hadn't seen him as broken. She'd seen him, and Alara too. Maybe being both wasn't a weakness. Maybe his human side, the part that understood strategy, empathy, the part that Kyle had always mocked, maybe that, combined with the wolf's strength, its instinct, its loyalty. Maybe that was what being a true alpha meant. Not just brute power, like Kale, but something more. Something Kale could never understand. A new kind of fire, slow and deep, began to burn in Alex's chest, pushing back the cold despair. It wasn't the wild rage from before. No, this was different. This was a resolve forged in loss, tempered by love, and sharpened by a dawning understanding of who he truly was. He looked at Lyra, her life, a fragile flame in his hands. He wouldn't let her go. He wouldn't let Kale win. The core, emotional question of his belonging. It began to find its answer, not in fitting in, but in becoming. "Tell me, Alara," Alex said, his voice still rough but with a new steely undertone that hadn't been there before. "Tell me about the mating rite, the true one, and tell me how we stop my brother." And so, while the blood moon climbed higher, staining the forest with its ominous light, they planned. Alara, her eyes now bright with a fierce, desperate hope, spoke of the ancient rituals. The mating bite, given by a true alpha to his mate under the moon's gaze. It wasn't just a claim, it was a sharing of life force, a merging of souls that could heal, could strengthen, could even defy death, if the alpha's will and spirit were strong enough. If his heart was true, which meant Alex had to be more than just blood heir. He had to be the alpha, in every sense. Then, Alara described Kale's dark ritual. He was trying to bind the pack's collective spirit, its totem, to himself, making him nearly invincible, but at the cost of their free will and their very souls. "He uses the pain of a true alpha blood sacrifice to power it," she whispered, her gaze flicking to Lyra. He thought to use Alara, but Lyra, with her own strong lineage and her bond to you, her unwilling sacrifice would give him even more power. A cold fury settled in Alex. Not only that, Kyle had likely known Lyra was Alex's fated mate, and that's why he targeted her so viciously. Because of that understanding, Alex's mind, once clouded by despair, now raced with a cold, clear focus. His human side, the strategist, the problem solver, it kicked into gear. He couldn't overpower Kale with dark magic. But maybe he could outthink him. His ritual, Alex mused. It requires focus, doesn't it? Concentration? Alara nodded. Immensely so. Any disruption at the peak, it could shatter his control. A plan began to form. Desperate, dangerous, possibly insane. But it was all they had. He would use his smaller rebel force as a distraction, a feint, drawing Kale's enforcers away. And then, he and Lyra, if she could be moved, if she could hold on, would go for Kale himself, at the heart of his defiled altar. Not just a physical attack, but an attack on his ritual, on his concentration, using Kale's own arrogance and dependence on brute force against him, as if fate demanded it. Alex felt his wolf and his human mind align, working as one, for the first time. As the silence stretched, he looked at Lyra's still form, his heart aching, but his resolve was like iron. He would not fail her. He would not fail his pack. He was no longer just reacting, he was choosing his path, embracing his destiny. The journey to Kale's ritual site, it was a nightmare of shadows and whispers. The blood moon hung directly overhead now, vast and crimson, bathing the forest in an eerie, pulsating light. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sounded like thunder in Alex's heightened senses. He carried Lyra, her body terrifyingly light in his arms, her breathing, still a faint, fragile flutter against his chest. Ilara and the 3 remaining loyal rebels moved like ghosts beside them, their faces grim but set with a desperate courage that mirrored his own. Their plan was simple, brutally simple. The rebels would create a diversion at the perimeter of Kale's ritual circle, loud, chaotic, drawing as many enforcers as possible. And then, in that span of a breath, Alex would slip through, with Lyra, to confront Kale at the defiled altar. With every heartbeat, the thrum of Kale's dark magic grew stronger, a sickening pulse in the air, heavy with the scent of blood and corrupted power. Alex could feel it, trying to worm its way into his mind, to feed his fear, his despair. But the thought of Lyra, her life hanging by a thread, the memory of her fierce love, it was a shield. She's mine. This pack is mine. He will not have them. As they neared the clearing, the sounds of Kale's ritual, guttural chants, the crackle of unholy energy, reached them. The rebels exchanged grim looks. It was time. One by one, they clasped Alex's arm. For Alaric and Lyanna, one whispered. For the pack, another growled. Then they were gone, fading into the blood-soaked shadows to unleash their desperate gambit. Alex took a deep breath. Lyra, a precious weight against him. Her scent, though faint, was still there. Pine, lightning, his mate. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Stay with me, my love," he murmured, his voice trembling only slightly. Just a little longer. Without another word, clutching Lyra tight, he stepped out from the trees and into the horrifying heart of his brother's madness. The blood moon, glaring down like a malevolent eye. The final confrontation was upon them, with the fate of everything he held dear, hanging precariously in the balance. "Brother." Alex's voice, calm, yet filled with an alpha's command, cut through Kale's guttural chants. Kale whirled, his face, a mask of rage and surprise, the dark energy of his corrupted ritual, swirling around him like a tormented shroud. "You dare interrupt?" he snarled, his eyes blazing with the unholy light of the blood moon. "You, the human runt, bring your dying mate to witness my ascension?" Alex gently laid Lyra down, near the edge of the defiled altar. Her breathing, a faint whisper against the rising wind. Her scent, so weak, still called to every fiber of his being. "Not dying," a fierce voice roared in his soul. "Not while I still breathe." And then, he shifted. Not with the pain of his first time, nor the controlled fury of before. This was different. A seamless, sacred unfolding of power. His human mind and wolf spirit, perfectly, irrevocably entwined. He was larger. His fur, the color of midnight. His eye, burning with a silver light that mirrored the true moon. Not Kale's blood-soaked imitation. Kale lunged, a monstrous wolf, empowered by stolen spirits. But Alex met him, not just with brute force. No, with a strategy born of human thought and wolf instinct. He used Kale's arrogance, Kale's rage, Kale's reliance on dark power. Against him, the fight, a blur of snapping jaws, tearing claws, the sickening thud of massive bodies colliding. Alex took blows that would have crippled him before. But Lyra's fading life force, her unwavering love, it was a fire in his veins. He had to protect her. He had to save her. He had to win this, for them, for their pack. Because of that singular focus. When Kale momentarily overextended, seeking a killing blow, Alex saw his opening. But it wasn't just for attack. With a surge of desperate love, he turned to Lyra. In that moment, under the weight of the blood moon, before Kale could react, Alex lowered his head, and with a tenderness that belied the savagery of the act, he delivered the true alpha's mating bite to Lyra's offered throat. A shockwave of pure, untainted alpha power erupted from their joined forms, a blinding white light. It blasted Kyle backward, disrupting his dark ritual completely. Lyra's eyes flew open, now blazing with renewed amber fire, her body arching as their life forces merged, healing her, empowering them both, as if fate demanded it. She rose beside him, a true alpha female, and together, a perfectly united force of nature and love, they faced Kale, his dark power fractured, his stolen spirits abandoning him. Kale was diminished, enraged, but ultimately broken. The final confrontation was swift. Alex, with Lyra at his side, ended his brother's tyranny, not with hatred, but with a grim, sorrowful justice. The blood moon's unholy light, it seemed to recede, leaving only the pure, silver glow of the true moon on the silent, blood-stained clearing, heavy, expectant. The acrid scent of Kale's dark magic faded, replaced by the clean smell of pine, damp earth, and wolf. Alex, his human form slowly reasserting itself, stood panting. Lyra, a warm, solid presence beside him, her wound miraculously healed, their mating marks on each other's shoulders and glowing with a soft, silvery light. Ilara and the few remaining rebels emerged from the shadows, their faces etched with awe and weary relief. Soon after, other pack members, drawn by the cataclysmic shift in power, began to creep into the clearing, their eyes wide, uncertain. They had been slaves to Kale's will. Their spirits dimmed. Now they looked lost. Alex felt a pang of grief for Kale, not for the monster he'd become, but for the brother he might have been, for the blood they shared. But that grief, it was a quiet undercurrent, beneath a rising tide of responsibility. He looked at Lyra, her amber eyes, filled with an unwavering love that mirrored his own. She nodded, a silent offering of strength. So, Alex turned to the assembled pack. His voice, when he spoke, was not the booming command of a tyrant, but the steady, resonant tone of a true alpha. Kale is gone, he said, the words simple, final. His darkness is ended. He didn't speak of victory or vengeance. Instead, he spoke of their parents, Alaric and Lyanna, of their vision for the pack, a family, built on loyalty, respect, and strength. He spoke of healing. He spoke of a new beginning. I am Alexander, son of Alaric, and this, he said, his hand finding Lyra's, their fingers lacing together, is Lyra, my mate, your alpha female. A murmur rippled through the crowd, not fear, not yet full acceptance perhaps, but hope, a fragile, dawning hope. Ilara stepped forward, her voice clear in the sudden stillness. The true blood has returned. The Moon Mother has blessed us with an alpha pair, united in spirit, to lead us back to the light. As if on cue, the first rays of dawn began to pierce through the canopy, painting the clearing in soft hues of rose and gold. The air thickened, not with dread, but with the scent of a new day. Months later, the Moonclaw pack was a different place. The fear that had permeated every shadow under Kale's rule was gone, replaced by a vibrant energy, a sense of community Alex had only ever dreamed of. The forest itself seemed healthier, the ancient trees breathing easier. He and Lyra, their mating marks a proud silvery declaration on their skin, led not by decree, but by example. Alex, with his human-instilled empathy and strategic mind, brought a new kind of wisdom to the pack. Lyra, with her fierce warrior spirit and deep understanding of their traditions, was his perfect balance, his strong alpha female. Together, they listened, they protected, they nurtured. That night, under a full, benevolent silver moon, the pack gathered for the festival of the renewed hunt, an ancient tradition Kale had corrupted, but which Alex and Lyra had restored to its true meaning, a celebration of unity, of bounty, of the sacred bond between wolf and wilderness. Pups tumbled and played freely, their happy yips echoing through the valley. Elders shared stories by the great fire, their voices no longer hushed with fear. Alex watched them, a warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with the fire, and everything to do with belonging. He was no longer the broken outsider. He was alpha. He was mate. He was home. Lyra came to stand beside him, her hand slipping into his, her scent of pine and lightning, a constant, beloved presence. "They're happy, Alex," she murmured, her amber eyes soft as she watched their pack. "You did this. We did this." He pulled her close, nuzzling her hair, breathing in her essence. "We did," he agreed, his voice thick with an emotion he finally understood as pure, unadulterated joy. His human past, his wolf present. They were no longer at war. They were simply him, whole. And because of that, he knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that their future, the pack's future, was bright. As the wind shifted, carrying the scent of the forest and the distant promise of snow, he looked at Lyra, his heart full. Maybe it was fate that had brought him through so much pain. But this, here, with her, under the silvered sky, this was destiny. Their souls answered each other, a silent promise of a love and a legacy that would endure. Thank you so much for watching this video. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed what you saw, we've got a whole library of other videos packed with more great content just like this waiting for you on our channel. So, why not dive into another one right now? And hey, if you want to make sure you don't miss out on our next upload, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We'd love to have you join our community and see you in the next video. Thanks again.